Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. So today's show features Dr. Chris Phelps. You'll learn more about him in just a second. First, here are a few things you're going to hear about in today's podcast. So Dr. Phelps is a master of grassroots marketing. And today we're going to discuss how to run and plan a successful event, including the skills you're going to need, how many patients you can expect to get from these events, how to leverage the events to spread the word about your practice, what you need to do while running the event, picking out what type of event to run, who to target to get to come to these, and why you need to have multiple different tactics to attract patients. Dr. Phelps is also a doctor who has grown multiple practices to astronomical sizes. So we're going to cover some great tips like how to spend an hour of your time and $135 a month to get 30 to 50 new patients, the right way to find someone else to help you with your marketing so that you don't have to do it all, the uncomfortable conversation you'll need to understand when speaking to patients who aren't going to use your practice, the interesting statistic that Dr. Phelps spotted after discovering missed calls with one of his private clients, and the simple change that caused that client to get 20% more clients practically overnight. What happens when you don't capture your target market's attention the first time, why you need more than one phone and phone line, how to track your marketing return while introducing accountability to your team, and the easy way to ease out poor performing employees that don't plan on advancing your business. We're also going to talk about the number one thing dentists do that creates a bad work environment, poor treatment acceptance rates, and a stagnant business. And finally, one of my personal favorites from the interview is how to avoid making your team freak out about tracking metrics and working towards improving big business practices, and also how to get them to make a personal, powerful commitment. So at the end, Dr. Phelps is going to share an amazing way to find your target market and select the right events to grow your relationship with them to turn them into patients. At the end of the episode, I'm going to let you know where you can go to download a free exercise to help you implement this advice. So be sure to listen all the way through for my sit-down conversation with Dr. Phelps. So now on to today's guest, Dr. Chris Phelps. Hello, ambitious dentists. This is Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. Today, we are being joined by Dr. Chris Phelps, the founder of Call Tracker OI. He is a dentist and an entrepreneur who owns multiple practices in the Charlotte, North Carolina region. He has a passion for business, and he's got a flair for marketing and promotion, which is actually the way that I heard about him first. Is I was listening to some of his marketing material of things he talks to dentists about. And to be honest with you, I thought it was incredibly creative and at the same time, incredibly reasonable to be able to actually freaking work for marketing. I know a lot of practices out there try things that just don't end up working. So our goal in these interview sessions is to give dental practice owners or soon to be dental practice owners as much ammunition as possible to be able to go out and actually move the needle, make things happen, be ready for starting up a practice or taking over a practice. And I was lucky enough to be able to be connected to Dr. Phelps through Facebook, actually. And so I saw that he was going to be introducing a new book, and it was exactly the subject matter that I wanted to talk to him about, which is his grassroots marketing campaigns and how he gets those to work and just really, really, really high leverage time versus return on investment situations. And he was, we were lucky enough for him to come on and grace us with his presence. Just a little bit about him. He is an owner that started out doing a number of different things he has going on for him. He is the science of Colby wisdom, as well as the science of influence and persuasion, how to ethically use Dr. Robert Cialdini's principles of influence to set the stage for patients to actually say yes and get butts in the chair, as he just told me in the pre-interview, which I think is a great way of describing the correct order of things. He has a number of different accolades. He has a number of different websites with the great resources for different practice owners to go and visit and learn about. So, Dr. Phelps, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a Tuesday afternoon, and I'm sitting in my house. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. So you're not bowed down by sitting in a chair with hands in a patient's mouth right now, huh?
That's right. I've got 8 great associates doing that work for me.
It's the dream, living the dream, buddy. So we have. I tried to mention as much as I could. The research I did was a little bit scrambled. Did I miss anything on your story?
No, I think that pretty much hits it all. So.
Good. Fantastic. So as I was saying earlier, I sat in on a webinar. There's not a whole lot of CPAs out there that like to listen to dental marketing webinars and interviews, but it's something I like to do because I like to pass that information if I hear any really good nuggets of information. And the entire webinar that I listened to you with was just jam-packed, full of really, really great ideas on grassroots marketing. So for people that are out there, can you explain what grassroots marketing is?
Yeah. If you think about politics, they always talk about grassroots efforts and means. And to me, grassroots marketing is getting back to the people, like getting in front of the people. I think we've kind of, through dentistry, we don't really have a lot of time to go to the people. So we rely on marketing to throw out this big net in the hopes that we're going to attract them and the net's going to pull them into the practice. And versus grassroots is where, no, I'm going to go find my market. I'm going to go to them and help them get over some hurdles I discovered that's keeping them from coming into our offices to start with.
So do you think that people are afraid to do grassroots marketing? Do you think there's safety behind being able to do the big nets?
I think so. I think it's and the reality is most of us have not created enough freedom in our practices to be able to give us even the time to think about these kind of things. That's one of the things I was fortunate to have, was I freed up my time. And when you get free time, you suddenly start wondering about what are you going to do next? and have time to start researching these things. And on top of that, it may not be in a lot of our natures to get up in front of a group of people and talk about your practice. So,
absolutely. So whenever you start to plan one of these events, is the typical goal to target a certain group of people?
Well, that's a good question. So with any kind of marketing, like I said in my webinar, you always have to start with who is your market, right? Who is your target audience? And there's a couple of ways you can figure that out. It could be like, look at last year's, all your top procedures you did last year, or the procedures you want to do in your practice if you're a new practice owner, and kind of define who is that person, right? Are they female? Are they male? What's their age? Are they working? Are they retired? And for me, in my practice, I noticed a trend that some of my best patients that wanted comprehensive care, that had the money, that could afford it, and actually wanted to pay for it, were 55 and older retirees. But I noticed I wasn't getting them in as much as I wanted. So I found a community maybe about 10 minutes away from one of my practices that had about 3,500 homes in it of active independent living retirees. And so we're not talking about assisted living homes. We're not talking about nursing home care people. We're talking about people who, are retired but live in a community of others like them, but can still have freedom to get in their car and drive to wherever they need to go. And that's kind of the market I sought out. And I actually kind of stumbled upon this grassroots marketing thing, like all great endeavors, by accident. Where, I was marketing in there. They had a monthly news magazine, and it was a really nice, well put together magazine. So I knew I had to be in there because I knew that was one of my target places. And so I put my one-page ad in there. And as a side benefit of being an advertiser, they asked me, they're like, oh, well, you get to come on site once a month if you'd like to and do an educational seminar. And I was like, educational seminar. Okay. I like it. I do it, you know? But then my thought was, well, what kind of theme am I gonna, what am I gonna talk about? What was my theme gonna be? And luck would have it, I had just got back from a trip from Napa Valley, California, a wine country, for those of you not familiar with it. And it was my first time out there, and I'd visited like 12 vineyards. And my favorite joke now is they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what happens in Napa follows home every month thereafter. And next thing I knew, I was like a wine club member of like 10 of these 12 wine clubs, and damn wine just keeps showing up like every month. And I thought, God, I got to do something with this wine. I can't drink all this with my wife. We got to get rid of this stuff. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to do a wine and cheese seminar at this community, and just like a meet and greet social, and try to give them something educational. And my tagline was, you can't get to Napa, so I'm going to bring Napa to you. And I thought I would try it out and see how many people showed up and were interested. And it was kind of interesting. We had 60 people who came to that event, which I thought was pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an interested person in the sense of I like to ask questions about people. I like to know like what their story is, where they came from. And so, I'm talking to the crowd and I'm saying, hey, this is a safe room. You can tell me the truth, but seriously, how many of you have been to the dentist in the last year? And I asked them to raise their hand, and only 10 of the 60 raised their hand. I was like, that ain't good. And I thought, well, okay, well, how many of you have dental insurance? And those 10 people raised their hand, right? So then I was on to something. I was like, okay. Well, how many of you would have gone to the dentist if you had insurance? And sure enough, the other 50 raised their hand. And so right there in that moment, something struck me is what this barrier that exists with these ideal patients we're all trying to get as to why they're not coming into the office. And I started thinking about my own parents who had recently retired, and the first thing they lost when they retired was their dental insurance from their company. And what happens when you go to a retiree is, you've saved up your money your whole lifetime, and now you got this kind of nest egg, if you will, that's now dwindling as time goes on, right? You're taking away from it every month instead of adding to it. And that's what they call a scarcity mindset, right? So resources are limited, everything's an expense. And so these people feel like they couldn't afford dental insurance, right? They didn't want to pay for it. And so, but by default, their next thought was, well, I don't have insurance, so I can't go to the dental office unless it hurts, I'm in pain or whatever, which we all know is crazy because the exact opposite is true. If you just go and prevent things from happening, it would cost you a lot less. But that's the psychology of it. That's the way their thought processes work. And so there was this huge barrier sitting in front of them that was keeping a lot of these great people from coming in. And so I knew right then that there was a problem that I had to solve. And I've heard a lot of people talking about in-house savings plans before, and there's a lot of people out there talking about it, but nobody really figured out what they're for, who's it for, and how to sell it. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to make up my own in-house savings plan, my own membership plan, if you will. And I called it the dental savings plan. And I created it and I pitched it at this next meeting and realized that sure enough, right, people were receptive to it. And now I'm able to get these retirees in the door and get them over that hurdle. The other important thing I noticed by going to do these wine and cheese events, which I didn't realize, was when you have that scarcity mindset, not only do they think that resources are limited and everything's an expense, but they also, especially this generation, has that it's too good to be true mindset, if you think about it, right? And so when they see our advertisements and think about it, they're getting 5 to 20 marketing pieces from dentists every month in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's a lot of dentists talking to them and a lot of them saying the exact same things. And so when they do see something different, like a dental savings plan or, no insurance, no problem, their initial thought is, oh, that sounds good, but they're skeptical. They're like, but what's the catch, right? It's too good to be true. And what I found is the power in this wine and cheese event, these socials, when you get in front of them, is you decrease that barrier and get them over that hump as well. So they know you, they like you, they appreciate the gift of the wine and cheese, and they feel like they want to reciprocate by coming into the office. And then they spread the word to the rest of the community, and it really just kind of snowballs from there.
So work me through what your thoughts were with doing this wine and cheese thing, because I know a lot of practice owners would probably be a little bit scared to do something like that, because you're really putting yourself out there to being of a mindset of saying, what happens if I do this and nobody comes to my one? Nobody wants to throw a party that nobody comes to, right? How did you get past that? Or did that even go through your mind?
No, it didn't really go through my mind because, I tried to throw in some things in when I was advertising in their magazine about the social. I thought, well, hopefully just the wine and cheese alone might bring people. That would be an incentive.
Hmm.
I put that there would be giveaways during the presentation, again, trying to incentivize people who might be interested to come. But you're right. Honestly, it was a total risk. My philosophy has always been that I don't care if 2 people show up or 100. It's still a win in my book, right? Because I guarantee you, out of those 2 people, I'm going to get 2 patients from it, right, to make it worthwhile. So I was okay putting myself out there as far as that goes. And I felt like I had a lot of confidence in our practice that we had a lot of things I could talk about, things that made our practice different than maybe other practices they had experienced. So I felt confident as far as that goes as well. I know a lot of people out there may not even feel like they can get up in front of people and do these kind of things. But I guarantee you, we all have that one employee we've hired who's an extrovert. She's the personality of the office who can do it for you. And you can stand in the back of the room and kind of smile and wave, right? And do a little one-on-one meet and greet. It still works.
Absolutely. So I really like that you incorporated something into your event that you obviously enjoyed being a part of these wine clubs. So would you say that'd be if someone is trying to think of something they can do in their community or in their network for, um, I would think that the first step would probably be to figure out what market they're trying to reach, or what group of people they're trying to reach. Would that and the way they would probably do that is that they already have an existing practice, would be to look at who their ideal patient is, or what can you talk about what they
Yeah, so go to run your Dentrix or whatever your practice management software is, and look at your top procedures. Who paid you the most money last year, right?
Mhm.
And look at their profile. What kind of people are they? Like I said, what age are they? Male or female? Do they work or do they not work? Look at the top procedures you did as far as money wise. Who spent the most with you? Look at who referred the most people to your practice, right? Because don't you want more people who are going to refer more people, right? So who are those people? What do they look like? And kind of one of the things I look for are just patterns. Do you see a pattern there? Is there some? Oh, look, they're almost the same person. And here's why. That's a way that it can help identify who your market is. And then once you kind of identify that, then your next question is, where do they hang out? Where do they live and where do they hang out? And if you can put the two together, like I did, it could be a very powerful thing for you.
Okay, so you figure out who you're going to target. You're going to figure out what they like, what they do, who they're around. Kind of touching on what you said about the people that refer to you the most. There's a very popular mindset that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. So assuming that they refer you, you have some patients that refer you a lot of people. Assuming you can reach that type of person, you should be able, and you're going to be where they are, where what they like, and you attract those people to your flame, I guess is a way of saying it.
That's it.
Then you'd be able to get more of those people, and it'd just be this exponential growth pattern. Is that a fair way of saying that?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, you may find that they're all, most of your target audience come from this one neighborhood and they all play golf together, right? So guess what? You may be doing a golf outing or a golf event or, something to support that part of the community. It could be anything really, but I guarantee you, most of us you'll find a pattern one way or the other, and then be able to figure out where those people are hanging out from there.
That's really great insight, again, because a lot of people nowadays will use the machine gun approach, where they're just spraying and praying. They're just getting everything out there that they can to try and find somebody to come into the practice to be another new patient, through direct mail, spending tons and tons of money on internet marketing. And I'm not saying that those advertising pieces don't have their place, but those things just seem to be the easy button for a lot of practices, that they feel like they're going to be able to just set this up and automate it and not actually get out there and do a lot of work. The practices that we work with, we see some really great practices that spend almost nothing in advertising, but they're pillars of their community in some fashion, or they're integrated into those networks. So, okay, so we've got the people that we're targeting. We've got the event that we're going to plan based off of what those people would want to go to. How do you figure out what event they would want to go to? what would you do? Would you ask, would you ask the patients where they hang out or something like that if you can't figure it out yourself?
Totally. I would totally go interview the patients and ask them directly. I would say, hey, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And again, ask them a barrage of questions and see if there's a pattern. See if they all say this one thing, whatever that is. Oh, we like to go, because the example is, at one of my practices, like I said, I go to the community itself, right? Because 3,500 homes there. So it's a no-brainer. But in my other practice, right, I don't have that kind of community near that practice, but there's a senior, it's called the Levine Senior Center, right? So it's just a center where retirees go to hang out together, right? So they all come there. So guess where I do my talks? I do it there, And if wine and cheese may not be the right event for them, I started thinking about my own experiences growing up, my grandparents. And I remember very fondly, they were big into ice cream root beer floats, and my grandparents used to always make me that growing up. And so I thought, well, that would be something I could do as my other type of event. Maybe somebody doesn't like alcohol or, attracts a different type of person, is we're going to do some root beer ice cream float socials, and that's going to attract a different kind of crowd as well. So there's always something you can do that's different and enticing to get people to come here. And they'll come for the educational content as well, arranging a nice PowerPoint lecture for them on the dental issues affecting the aging population. And here's the top 5 things you can do to prevent it. It's going to be very powerful.
Absolutely. So it's okay. So we know who we're targeting. We know who is going to be coming to the events, what event we're running. The next thing in your story that I picked out was that you found a problem that had to be, or an objection that had to be overcome in order to be able to get those people to come in. Is that an accurate statement?
Definitely, because we're all looking for the fee-for-service patient, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're in network with insurance companies and trying to get out of it, or not a network provider like myself in general, just trying to build your patient base. And so what I figured out with that community is, because of that scarcity mindset, they needed something to get them in the door, right? They needed some way so they could think they had dental insurance or something similar enough to it, so it gets them into the office. And my theory was, once I got them into the office, if we found anything that needed done or we presented treatment, that they would move forward with it. And that's where that dental savings plan comes into play. I went out and priced out different insurance plans for somebody who was 60 and older in my area with the 4 major carriers, like Delta Dental and MetLife and whoever. And then I went to AARP, because I know these people, a lot of them are in this retirement society club, AARP, right? Mm-hmm. So I checked their price, and on average, it ranged from $475 to $600 for one person to get an insurance plan.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no wonder they're not buying it, And so I said, okay, screw that. I'm going to give basically the same type of coverage, but in my opinion, better, for half of that. So I'm going to do it for $299. And my thought was that would be, since they're sensitive to price in some ways, that would get them over those barriers and get them in the door. And I was right, and then the average person ended up spending an additional $1,254 per person.
It's fantastic. So find the problem, research the problem, and don't be afraid to be creative is what I get out of there, because a lot of people would just say, well, I got to find a way to get these people insurance, or I guess they're just not going to be patient since they don't want to come to me, they don't like me, when in actuality it's just that those people feel like they can't afford it or they don't have the insurance to do it. And it may not be price that they have. It may be, in certain communities, it might be something like time. Like they don't think they have the time. If you're in a metropolitan area with a lot of corporate people around, they don't feel like they have the time to go in. I know that whenever I started my career, I started with the largest accounting firm in the state. And you think that if I thought that I worked a lot now, I couldn't hold carry a candle around the guy I used to be. And it was because I was all the time, working. I was always on trying to beat the other guy that was doing my job, because I wanted to go rise to the top. Right. Yeah. So don't, I know a lot of people believe that price is a big area, but, be creative in trying to find what that real problem is. Do you have any other types of tips to be able to ask people, how to get past these objections, or how to dig into those questions?
I mean, for me, it was like I said, I was just trying to find my philosophy on marketing is there's no one thing that's going to get you the number of patients you're looking for.
Sure.
A guy once said, I can't give you one thing to get you 100 patients, but I'll give you 100 things that'll give you one patient each.
Yep.
And I kind of use that philosophy in my webinar with, I believe marketing is like fishing with multiple fishing poles versus sitting in a deer stand trying to get one deer.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to have multiple avenues of marketing type sources out there to try to attract your patients. And each one of them has their own set of challenges. Like I said, had I not gone in and gotten in front of these people and started asking them these questions, I never would have known what was keeping them from coming in. So I was very fortunate to do that just because I was willing to step out there and just do something different. And these people appreciate it. I mean, that's the one thing I figured out is that's why you should feel safe doing it, because a lot of people would come in, more people would come into your practice if you just went out and touched them and communicated with them like that in person. But in other areas, like in certain marketings, there's different reasons why they're not coming in, So it's hard to say. There's no really one thing. It's just more get your way in front of your target market and then ask them, why did you buy this? And call those that you presented treatment to and didn't move forward, who were in your target market, and ask them why they didn't move forward. You can be honest with them, right? And tell, hey, look, you can tell me. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. But that insight is huge. And that will lead you to the true problem, where then you can figure out a solution around it.
It's great. Asking great questions is something that people need to be very comfortable with if you're going to be a business owner. So if there's anyone out there listening that is considering a startup route, planning a practice purchase, anything like that, this is really, really great information to be covering.
Well, and Jonathan, a lot of people, and I talk about this in my Principles of Persuasion workshop, but a lot of people retreat from a no, right? They're scared of no, right? And they run from it. I, on the other hand, retreat into the no, right? So I'm not afraid to hear a no because I'm going to ask more questions because I just want to know why. And you'll be amazed what you find out by doing so.
That's absolutely true. I can remember many times where I've had to ask people, when I first started out, if I ever got a no for someone that I'd approached or had approached me for services, and they rejected a proposal or something like that. You have to ask, if you don't mind me asking for, my own purposes, why did you choose not to go with me? And it could be a million different things, nothing, personal involved. So that's really, really, really interesting. What if, speaking back to the person that might be considering that startup, might be considering that acquisition, what might be a good, I really want to tap your marketing mind in this. And something I don't see a whole lot of information about is, the grand opening for these practices, whether it is a new practice owner moving halfway across the country to start a practice in an area that he's only visited a few times that he wants to live in. Maybe they've been in the, in the armed services and they're moving back to a home area. Do you have any, you've had a lot of successes in your practices. Do you have any insight to that process, to what really works to get people in quickly?
Once you've taken over a new practice of some type or started one?
I guess that's probably a two-part question. So let's do the first one of, if you're going to be starting a new practice, just a scratch practice.
Well, first off, you got to decide what kind of practice you're going to be. Are you going to be an in-network doctor? Do you feel like you're going to have to sign up for a bunch of insurance plans in the hopes that that's how you're going to get your patients?
Mm-hmm.
And so you will not have to spend a lot of money on marketing. That's one philosophy, right? And a lot of people do that. So you're going more of the high volume, taking a hit on your profit margins kind of model. Or are you going to go with a fee for service model? We are, what they call assignment of benefit, meaning I estimate what the insurance will pay me as an out-of-network provider, which for most of your preventative things like cleanings, exams, x-rays, they pay me 100% anyway, the vast majority of them. And then for the other things like crowns, I estimate what the insurance is going to pay me. I file that for the patient, wait on that piece, and I collect the difference today. But so if my crown's $1,200 and the insurance is going to pay $400 as an out-of-network provider, I'll wait on that $400 and the patient pays $800 today. So that's the benefit for them, is that I'm taking less out of pocket than maybe I could if I was just a straight up fee for service office and wanted that whole $1,200. And the benefit for me is I still get to charge my full fee. So there's still a good profit margin in there. And so if you're going to be that kind of practice, which is the ideal in my opinion, and you can do that in any part of this country still today, if you know how to do it, is you got to have some money. There's two parts of this. You got to have some money to market. That's it. You're going to have to spend money on external marketing in some of these avenues, whether it be traditional advertising mediums, online, or doing these grassroots kind of things to get people in the door. And then as time goes on and you build your practice with that, you will transition it to the more inexpensive marketing mediums, such as getting more referrals, right? Internal marketing and doing these grassroots things. I didn't mention that, but these wine and cheese events, they cost me $135 a month, right? That's it. I spend an hour of my time with these people. And I net 30 to 50 new patients a month from it for 2 years in a row. Okay. Very inexpensive, that you can do tomorrow. My internal marketing thing, I have an internal marketing system called Ask for the Referral System I use. That uses 4 of the 6 principles of Cialdini's influence. And it literally costs me, if I run it correctly, it costs me $12 a patient. With 10 of that going to my staff as a bonus for helping the process. So, but it starts out with, if you're a brand new practice owner and you're going to do this, you got to, I think, both from taking over a practice or start from scratch, you got to have a little money to market externally. When you inherit a practice, you got a transition period there where the whole, patient base has got to get used to you. Who is this guy? They're still contrasting you to the previous person. And that takes time to get over, right? So you build yourself up as the authority with that patient base. So you have to be very conservative in the care you're providing them. Otherwise, you'll scare a bunch of them off. Well, in the meantime, you're going to have to bring some new people in who you are the authority from day one, because they don't know any better, right? To help feed your revenue systems until that occurs.
So what is, when you were talking about spending that advertising money, there are a lot of people out there that are willing to do the advertising. Sorry, my earpiece just fell out. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to do the advertising for you. And I know that, naturally the people that are good at marketing towards dentists are, they're hopefully going to be good marketers in themselves. So there's a lot of people out there that sell these services that aren't, I have a feeling they cost more than what they typically are worth a lot of the times. I don't know a more politically correct way of saying that. What is a way for people to be able to, that are in those situations, to be able to kind of separate the good from the bad? Do you have any types of insight to that?
Yeah, and what you're looking for is you need some way to keep everyone accountable, right, for their actions. And what I found out there in marketing is that people want to give you just enough data to justify their fee, but they may or may not really be helping you, right? And if you really looked at the data hard and understood it like I do, they're really not helping you and you're losing money. And so that was my situation. Flashback now, 4 years ago. I'd sold 2 of my offices, my 2 highest producing profitable offices, and I took over my 2 lowest producing offices. One was a cold start office that had just started. It was about 10 months old. They had 1 associate working it, and the other one was just a practice, my original practice I started in, that had been kind of flatlined in growth for about 4 years straight. It collected like $1.2 million every year for like 4 straight years. And I was spending $36,000 a month in marketing and getting 60 patients for my effort, 30 at one office and 30 at the other. And I was like, holy crap, I got a problem. And I had all kinds of people doing marketing for me, right? And all different types. And I thought, I have a problem, and I gotta figure out what this problem is, right? And nobody had and I went trying different call trackers and different other systems out there, and there's a billion of them. They're cheap, but they all started scratching at the truth, but none of them gave me the whole truth of what I needed as a business owner and the CEO of my company to get to the truth. And so that's kind of really out of that necessity how my call tracker ROI system got developed. Its whole purpose is doing just that. It's an accountability tool. So you can decide the 2 parts of every marketing coin, right? Is the marketing you're spending your money on, right, producing enough quality of patients and quantity of patients to justify the expense? And B, how is your team handling the calls that you're getting, the opportunities? Are they answering the phone or are they not? And if they are answering the phone, are they converting them into appointments or not? And one of the sad things I found out from my own team was I didn't answer. We didn't even pick up the phone for over 200 potential new patient calls a month. 200, didn't even answer. Okay. Talking about wasted money, right? And when we did answer the phone, we only converted 24% of them into appointments. So if 10 people called my practice interested in an appointment, only 2 left the phone call with an appointment. And thus I realized, well, in my case, my marketing is bringing in a bunch of leads, but guess what? My team's dropping the ball. So that was my problem. I call that the lost opportunity side. If the marketing is doing what it's supposed to and bringing in the leads and you can't get them in, that's a lost opportunity. So it's a balance of trying to figure out which of those 2 things are going. But if you don't have a way to measure it, right? If you don't have the data you need to keep whoever's accountable, your own team or the person you're paying for marketing, then you're just guessing, man. You're blindfolded and throwing darts at the dartboard, except the dartboard's back behind you.
That's a really good analogy. The age-old saying is what's measured is improved. And the counter to that is what's not measured is not improved.
Right.
So,
and the other thing is what's measured and reported improves exponentially.
Yeah, especially if somebody's butt's on the line, then and they're having to report it to you, then they really know that's really going to start improving if somebody else is ahead of it and you're the boss. I found.
Oh.
So you scratched your own itch by creating this call tracker ROI.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones that were out there weren't doing what you needed.
Right.
What insights did that bring you into your problem of spending so much money a month? Was it mostly poor performing campaigns, or was it more around the training?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Some of the things I was spending my money on were bringing in 0 leads. I mean, 0. And so that was easy to make that decision. Once I was tracking it, like the fishing poles, I got 10 poles out there and only these 4 are biting. Well, these 6 I can pull out of the water, right? And I can reinvest a little more in these other poles that are biting to see if I get double the result, or I can invest it in something else. Mm-hmm. So that from that side, it helped me clean up some things that was just either through, dentists are bad about building relationships with marketing people, and we feel bad and we just want to pay them, right? Because we like them or whatever. But the truth is the data helps you make really clear decisions and say, I like it, but it ain't working. So it's got to go somewhere else. So either you can be the one to help me do that, or I'm going to find someone who will. Simple, period is that. From the flip side, the ones that were working, in that lost opportunity, it helped me find out, well, why am I not answering the phone? Right? When is it occurring? And is there anything I can do about it? Number one. And in some cases, it's simple stuff. I was talking to one of my clients, going over his data last week, and they didn't answer maybe 64 phone calls from potential new patients last month, which was about 55% of his total marketing-based opportunities. He didn't answer half of them, right? So guess when they all were? I said, when do you take lunch? He goes, from 1 to 2. I said, let me guess. Does everybody go? Is it like a ghost town? He goes, yeah. I said, look at your report. Guess when your potential new patients are calling? When you're gone. So guess what he did? It was, simple. Next day, somebody's there answering the phone, staggered their lunches, right? And they're on a rotating system. Every 2 weeks, one of the 2 front desk girls is there. So they still don't miss out of lunch with the other team, kind of thing. And his drop calls disappeared. His new patients went up by 20 the next month. One change.
You wouldn't believe how often I call practices, all over the country, and you get a robocall answer that says they're not available. This is your number for an emergency. I'll call on like a random Thursday afternoon, and that's the sporadic afternoon that they have off, and there's no way to get a hold of anyone. That creates so many problems in and of itself that you've got, it could be someone trying to call to make a payment that they've got money in the bank account right now, so they're willing to give you the payment. Whereas in tomorrow, something could happen. They're not going to give you the payment. Or if it's a new patient, then they're just going to go, well, I guess they're not there. I'm going to go to the next person down the line that comes up on Google or on the Yellow Pages if they use that or anything like that. So, yeah, absolutely. That's a huge problem for a lot of practices.
Google did a study on that, and they showed that if a new client calls your business and you don't answer, you got 7 minutes to call them back and try to recapture them, or they're gone. They've Googled the next office and they're gone. 90% of potential new clients will not leave a voicemail at your office. They just won't. If they were referred, maybe you get lucky, but otherwise they're gone. 7 minutes.
I absolutely believe it, because you feel like you're being ignored whenever you call into a place and they don't answer. Everybody's so connected nowadays. Now, there's certain people out there that aren't like that, but to me personally, that if I call, I feel like I'm being ignored. Like, oh, I guess they don't want to talk to me if they can't even, have it routed to someone's number, or have an answering service, or, at least give me a little bit more clear instructions about what to do next. I mean, I'm calling in the middle of the business day,
Well, and think about it. We're bombarded by 3 million marketing messages a year. That's like 3,000 marketing messages we're each individually hit with every day, right? And think about how many decisions we have to make on a daily basis. 1,000, 2,000. Okay, there's my son Liam. Hello, Liam. Hey. Right, so 1,000, right, decisions a day. So honestly, we don't have time, right? We don't have time to mess with this. This is my little window of opportunity, and if I can't do it, well, guess what? I'm gonna go to another place. There's my other son Riley.
Hey guys.
But look at the thing that
He's my master Lego builder back here. Look at this thing.
That's an important quality.
It's the Wookiee gunship.
Needs to open up.
Cool.
Can you tell him that
Okay. Hey, you guys go upstairs, okay? I gotta finish this, okay?
Okay.
All right, I'll see you
You
later.
tell him that Lego Master Builder.
Okay, yes, I'll tell him. Those are my Lego master builders.
Hey, at least he's got good taste. He's a Star Wars fan. So
yeah. And I forgot where I was. That's my kids for you.
I'm the same way. As soon as my little girl runs in, I'm just like, I don't know what I was talking about. So we were talking about there's so many marketing messages that people get every year.
Yeah. So people don't have time, right? That they got this little this little tiny window, man. And if you don't fit that, they're gone to the next one until they want to make the next decision, make it a good one, so they can move on to the other 1,000 decisions they got to make. So we don't have time to mess around. And the sad thing is, I ask most dentists, if you ask every dentist out there listening to this right now, or a raise of hands, how many of you think you're missing new patient calls right now? Whether you're marketing or not, how many of you think you miss them or don't answer? I guarantee you 99.9% of them would raise their hand and swear to you up and down that they feel like they're not missing them. They would almost guarantee it. But the reality is they don't track it. They don't have the data. And so they don't know what they don't know. And I would guarantee you that every one of them is missing calls because the staff doesn't even know. Because, we get fooled because we think, well, I got voice over IP. I got 100 phone lines. How can I miss a call? And I ask them, well, how many physical telephones do you have at the front desk? They're like, well, 2. And how many people? 2. Okay. So what happens when Tina's on hold with the insurance company for 20 minutes and Jill's on hold confirming appointments for the next day, talking to an existing patient trying to schedule their appointment, and a new patient calls in? What happens? He goes, exactly. They don't flip over, right? Goes to voicemail, gets a busy signal, or the caller rings it a little bit, and they hang up, and they're gone. Happens all the time.
So if someone was wanting to know more about Call Tracker ROI, is it just Call Tracker ROI? Is that the URL?
Yep, calltrackerroi.com, all one word. Yeah, okay. I've kind of got some kind of cool, unique solutions I've created for this missed call issue directly to help solve it for you. And then going back to the other thing you said was it's more, I had a need for phone training, right? Less than 5% of the staffs out there have ever had any kind of formal phone training. My problem with everybody else's phone training is it's based off speculation, right? It's based off their theory, and it's based off how nice they think your staff should sound on the telephone, and they score you based on these things that they have no proof that actually works in converting appointments or not. And so one of the things that's come out of my call tracker, when you listen to thousands of phone calls and you actually hear in all these offices, right, in the US and Canada and wherever we are, it's always the same 5 reasons why they're not booking the phone call. Okay, same 5 problems. So what I did was kind of identify what those things were, come up with solutions to those problems, right, to get around those hurdles that I'm hearing, and then reverse engineered some training based off of that. So I can prove that if you can answer it these ways, you're going to get more people in. Simple as that. But another powerful thing I figured out was if you just do nothing else but take the data on the reasons why they're not booking their phone calls that we give you by staff member, because I kind of give you a transcript by staff member, and you just go to your staff member and do it as a team and share them that data. This is what I said, what's measured and reported grows exponentially, right? If you show them, number one, you shine the light of accountability on them that, hey, by the way, I'm watching this stuff, and every month we're going to have a conversation about it. Not in a bad way, but you just say, hey, let's go over your stuff. Here's your conversion numbers. Here's why you didn't book the phone calls. And what do you think? Could you have said something different in these examples? And then you put in your input, right? Very non-confrontationally, and say, well, all right, here's how I might say this differently next month. Just doing that alone every month, and they know it's going to happen. I've seen staff members' conversions double or triple, doing nothing else.
We don't do much on the marketing side of things, but we absolutely, help people with productivity numbers. And it's kind of the same thing from a marketing perspective versus, a production by provider perspective. Whenever we tell people, look, this is your production per day or production per hour. If I look at a practice as a whole to say, this is what your production is for this month. And based off of all these discussions we've had on what your goals for the practice and your personal income being generated by the practice, this is where we're going to have to be. You would be amazed at how that can actually make things change by having something in mind and creating accountability. I always say that you have to set an expectation. You have to then hold them accountable, and then you have to be consistent at holding them accountable. So you have to have the discipline to continually tell them these things to happen. And it's a really, really great way to start weeding out bad employees, because the bad employees are just going to be like, oh, this is just another job. We're just going to keep going. And the good employees are going to be the ones that start all of a sudden, they're taking what you're saying to heart, and they're going to try to actually do what you're asking them to do, because you're actually leading them in a specific direction rather than just saying, hey, have fun up there talking to people. Make sure you set my appointment schedule to where I can take a 2-hour lunch.
Right. Well, and it was important, like you said, that one thing I do is and the number one thing we don't do enough of in dentistry is we don't get enough commitments out of people. And we don't get enough commitments out of our own staff. And so one of the things I did when I went to present this with my team, because if you start telling them we're tracking your stuff, they're going to freak out, right? But if you explain it in the sense of, you first ask them questions, say, hey, this is what do we all agree that, who here agrees that we need to get more new patients? We'd like to be busier, right? We need to be more productive, and get everybody to agree to that. Yes. Hey, guess what I'm spending on this so far, right? Do you agree that I'm overspending, right? Or underspending? They're going to all vote for overspending. Okay. So you agree, who here agrees I have a problem and we need to fix this? And they're all going to raise their hand. But when they do this, you don't realize you're getting them to make a very powerful commitment to you. Okay. So then I go into, okay, great. Well, to help solve this problem, because you're right, I got to find out what the answer is and why we're overspending for these things. So we're going to be tracking our new patient calls only from marketing sources, right? I don't care if your husband calls in and he calls the main line, we're not going to hear that. We're only listening for new calls. But I got to find out what's going on the telephone. Is it the ads not producing the leads, or are we not handling the leads? And I said, regardless of what the data shows me, and I'll use an example. I'll say, Shelly, just pick out one little girl and say, let's say you're only converting 10% of the calls. That's what we find out next month. Whose fault is that? Is that your fault or my fault? And I don't let her answer. And I say, it's my fault, right? I just assumed you knew what to do. I just threw you at the front desk and said, get them in. Like it was just that easy thing. And I said, but I had no idea after listening to these telephone calls just how challenging your job is, right? So I want to be able to get you the tools you need to succeed and help this practice succeed. So do you agree that's a good thing or not? That's a good thing. Great. I'm not using this to fire you, but if there's a problem there, I need to know what it is so I can get you the tools so we can all succeed. And who agrees that's a good thing? And when you keep getting these little commitments like that, then you'll find it's a smooth transition and they'll be behind it 100%. And then the ones that aren't, right, you go to them, you give them every chance to succeed, right? Well, now whose fault is it? It's theirs. And like you said, now you know which employee needs to go and is not helping your cause.
Absolutely. That is the perfect explanation of of how to lead a team member through to get them to do something that you want them to do. Whenever they have, when I speak to so many dentists that feel like that their team leads them rather than they lead the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural because a lot of dentists are thrust into this business ownership because that's kind of the path that they were set into, and that's what they were told to do. After all these dentists are owning practices. I need to own my own, or else I have to work for these corporate practices, and you end up working a lot of the time with people that have more actual experience within the business than yourself. So over time, they feel like they're trapped in these certain situations. So that's, if everyone listening listens to anything in this interview, I think that was very, very important. I think everyone can learn something about that explanation. So thank you for talking about that.
Yeah, and that's what we spend a lot of time on in my Principles of Persuasion workshop: how to ethically influence more patients to say yes, but also how to ethically influence our staff to do what they need to do, right, and empower them to improve, and get the things done we need them to do.
Fantastic. So by the time this is released, you should have a new book out. What can you talk to us a little bit about that book?
Yes, it's a book all about why you need a dental savings plan, how you can attract, kind of what we talked about before, how I identify those barriers, what's keeping these fee-for-service patients who are great patients, and who'll pay your fees, but they need a little discount to do so, right? Get them in the door, and how best to present it, right, and sell it to them using these wine and cheese seminars. Wineandcheesenewpatients.com is my website. It's designed to give you all the materials you need to be able to do more than number one, have the confidence to go out and do these things. No matter what stage you are at your dental practice, whether you're fee for service or whether you're in networks and looking for some strategies to get new patients in so that you can get off some of these insurance plans.
That's great. And, I am going to be one of the first people to read this when it becomes available to the public, because I'm a huge reader of books, and I try to always be expanding my knowledge base. So whenever this comes out, hopefully I'll have gotten a peek at it at some point. So that's my subtle nod to you, to saying I want a sneak peek before it gets out there. So wineandcheesenewpatients.com is the URL where you can go to get that. I highly urge everyone to go there. You've been really, really, really great in this interview. What is a way, if anyone has questions of how they can reach out to you, if they have any follow-up questions, or if maybe we didn't dig deep enough into what an hour-long interview can cover?
Sure. Oh, my email is dr, like Dr. Chris, CHRIS, DMD is my degree. So Dr. Chris DMD at gmail.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise here. Is there anything else before we go that you might want to impart on the listeners knowing that we're mostly talking to, soon to be new practice owners and people that have probably purchased a practice or started a practice in the last 5 years?
I guess the main thing is, a lot of the emails I'll usually get is, where do I find out more about influence and persuasion and all that? So, my website there is www.guidethemtoyes.com, guidethemtoyes.com. So you can learn more about that there. But remember, no matter what stage you are, everyone needs a coach, right? Think about all your professional athletes, right? They all need a coach. They all need somebody to help show them the gorilla in the room that they don't see, that's inhibiting their practice, that's holding them back, whatever it is. And so I've been very blessed that I was referred to a group called The Strategic Coach. And that's who I've been with for the last 4 years. And even with the success of my early days, I hit a plateau just like every entrepreneur does at some point in their careers. And they were really good at forcing me to be the structure I needed to break out of that and stay focused on my goals for the next 90 days and really step up my CEO game, which when you're a business owner, I know our hands are in the mouth 90% of the time, but you got to step up your CEO game.
Absolutely. Great insight. That falls across every business. I mean, I have a business coach, I'm a part of masterminds and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And I can completely sign off on what you just said, Dr. Phelps. That is Really great insight. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about whenever they're actually in that business environment. You know, you can reach out to peers and reach out to people that have more success than you do because people that have success, you know, from the outside looking in, a lot of the times people think of, well, why would they tell me how to do something if they're so successful? Because that could be bad for them. I've always personally found that is the opposite of the case. Most successful people want other successful people to exist. They want to help other people. Is that the same thing that you found?
Yeah, and it goes back to the scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. You know, and if you're in that scarcity mindset and it's all about competition and resources are limited, this is a hard concept for you to get. So of course that's going to be your initial instinct. But if you look at it kind of like what most successful people do, such as myself, it's an abundance mindset. To me, my resources are unlimited. So I can have all of you out there doing a wine and cheese event, right, and doing your own in-house savings plan. And you could be all around my practice, but I guarantee you will not affect my practice because you are not my competition, right? I will always do something different or innovative, or my patients come to me for a different reason than they come to you. And your patients go to you for a different reason than what they come to me. And there's so many out there, more than enough for all of us, right? So I'm an abundance mindset kind of person. I believe in giving back and trying to help others who will receive it.
Fantastic information. Again, thank you for sharing. And everyone, I hope you'll reach out to Dr. Phelps, send him an email, say thank you for coming on, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Dr. Phelps.
Bye.
Bye. A special thanks to Dr. Phelps for coming on the show with us today. So Dr. Phelps is obviously a marketing genius, and I was taking a ton of notes while he was sharing his insights into how to find, select, and market to your target audience. I've re-listened to the show from today, I combined it with my notes, and I created a quick exercise you can do right now to put Dr. Phelps' advice into action. If you want free access to that exercise, along with other free resources available from the show, text PRACTICE to 33444. Again, that's PRACTICE to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the US. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you like the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.